Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly Purple Penny coin news video. My name's Mark. I run the Purple Penny, which is a coin shop in Mawson Lakes in Adelaide, South Australia. Mawson Lakes is a suburb about 15 minutes north of the centre of Adelaide, which is the capital city of South Australia. My wife and I have been doing this we've been doing it online for a long time, but we opened up this shop in May 3 years ago, so we're coming up to our third birthday. Time has flown. Last week was, as you'd imagine, very busy. We had the Royal Australian Mint release for February last Thursday, and there were a number of products released last Thursday, and I'm sort of pretty happy to say that it was the biggest mint release that we've done by quite a margin. We keep fairly close track of what people are interested in before release day, and we have a system to print out slips for people that we have enough stock for. We had more slips printed out last Thursday than we have on any other day, probably by at least double, I would say. Before we jump into the news, we'll say hello to people. Hello Mike and Paul, Brooke, Aaron, Jacob, John, Tanya, Gwen, Greg, Dan, John, Ash, and Clay, and Jacob again. Did we get a decent allocation, Jacob? We'd like to get more. We could certainly sell more. The rolls went as expected. We've had the same allocation for rolls now for quite a while, and know what sells in the shop and have a small number left for online. The amount that we had up online lasted about 10 or 12 minutes, which is a bit longer than usual. I think there probably wasn't quite the interest in this roll that there was in the previous ones, and also you could get the coin in the mint set as well. And I think the 8:30 Eastern release time takes a bit away from the traffic. They used to release at midnight, and we were one of the few places that released at midnight, and often that caused our website problems. Since the release has been at 8:30 AM, we haven't had those issues. Right, let's just jump into the news. So the February RAM releases are run and done. As I said, we're sold out of the rolls. We've still got Tooth Fairy coins left and CWA aluminium bronze dollar coins left. The silver ones we got a very small allocation of, and they sold out straight away. We didn't have enough left for the website. The secondary market, and those of you who are not sure what the secondary market is how these things sell via eBay or Gumtree or social media or whatever. That's the secondary market. The secondary market for these releases has been a bit flat, so I had a bit of a trawl through eBay last night. Looks like the frontline worker rolls are selling anywhere from $115 to $130. And if you're selling a roll for $115 on eBay, you're not really making anything, because eBay's going to take that $15 as fees. So that's hard work for someone who's trying to buy these rolls and flip them around straight away. The one that I was a little bit surprised about was the CWA silver proof, the half-ounce silver proof. There was just 2,022 of those minted. As I said, our allocation was very small, and we had enough people interested in them that we didn't have enough to list on our website. They're only selling for between $100 and $180. A release price of those is $80, so I thought they would be a bit more popular than that. It's a nice design, and it's going to be a hard coin to find in the future. Perhaps the subject material let it down a little bit. Anyway, that's February releases. Poor old Catherine is still over there packaging things up. You might have seen that image I posted up this morning, but somewhere between 50 and 100 packages she had to get out. She has to get out today and tomorrow, and that's all the stuff that we sold on Thursday and Friday and over the weekend. Not her favourite time of the month, but she does get it done. She's a machine working through that stuff, so kudos to her for getting that done. Right, so the merry-go-round continues. Usually on release day we have the line listings for next month, and there's the items that are being released next month. The first 3 releases there are the last 3 in the coloured Steam Train series. The WA, SA and Commonwealth Railways coin. Now, I imagine most dealers are going to get exactly the same allocation for the last 3 coins as what they did for the first 2 releases. We certainly are expecting the same, and as such we won't be taking interest in these coins. We'll be just going back through who has bought them off of us last time and making sure that those people have coins available to complete their sets. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. I guess if we fast forward, if we do a fast reverse back to October last year, I did suggest that the first coin was going to be popular and you should try and grab one. Hopefully you did manage to do that and you're not stuck buying these things on the secondary market. If you are stuck buying these things on the secondary market and you know someone in Canberra, send them into the mint, because they certainly still had some of these train coins available in the mint at release price from the retail shop. So if you know someone in Canberra, maybe get onto them or jump onto Airtasker and find someone in Canberra to do it for you. So you might be able to still pick up some of those train coins at release price from the mint in Canberra. The next 3 releases in March are the ongoing Royal Australian Mint Kangaroo coins. As usual, we've got the silver proof, the frosted unk in a capsule and the gold coin. Those of you who have been collecting that series, you'd probably be interested in continuing with those. If you're not interested in that series, so be it. It's not really something that's particularly exciting to me. I guess the designs are nice, but it is a series that's been going on for a long time. So that's the releases in March. If you are interested in any of those kangaroo coins, please let us know and we'll take your name for them and hopefully be able to get some stock for you. So that's the releases for March. We'll just jump back over to the news here. Right. I did my usual news troll over the weekend, and by troll I mean trolling for news, not making a nuisance of myself online. And I've just noticed a typo there in withdrawal, silly me. Anyway, a gold leopard, which is a 3 shilling gold coin minted in 1344, was metal detected in England, and it's coming up for auction on Dix, Noonan Webb, who are a big English auction and coin house, expected to fetch 150 to 250,000 pounds, which is about $300 to $400,000. And we'll just bring up a picture of that because it is a nice looking thing. So that's the gold leopard there. Up the top there is how it was actually found, dug out of the ground. It was found folded in half, and it was actually found with a Edward III gold noble as well, which was also folded in half. So this gold leopard is a particularly scarce coin. So as I said, it was a leopard was 3 shillings, which is a florin and a half, or so a florin and a half, and it's made out of 23 karat gold. This will be either the 5th or 6th one known to exist. So it is a genuinely rare coin. I know that rare is one of these overused words, but this is actually a real rare coin. And there are just 3 in public collections and 1 or 2 in private hands. So a pretty remarkable find for that metal detectorist. And I don't know if any of you were fans of Time Team, which was a great show that used to be on TV, but they used to talk there a fair bit about what they call the portable antiquities scheme, and this was a scheme for recording things that are found in the UK, and this coin has a very interesting page on the portable antiquities scheme theorising about where it's come from. It was probably stashed in the ground as a store of loot with another gold coin and probably forgotten about, or perhaps the person who stashed it was killed or something like that. Very interesting that you can find these things in the ground in the UK. Just jump back to the news slide. Right. Interestingly, February the 1st, which is last Tuesday marked 32 years since the 1 and 2 cent piece were withdrawn from circulation. Somehow, in between 1966 and 1990, the mint in Canberra and Perth managed to mint 20,500 tonnes of 1 and 2 cent pieces. 20,500 tonnes of 1 and 2 cent pieces. That is a buttload of 1 and 2 cent pieces. They, of course, were withdrawn because it wasn't worth hanging on to them anymore. They were costing more to make than they were worth. And as inflation happens, the value of 1 and 2 cent becomes less and less, and at some point it became useless to the economy to have them. And it was interesting just reading some news stories back from 1990 with people worrying about prices such as $9.99 and $9.94 and things like that disappearing and then being gouged for 1 and 2 cents in rounding. Exactly the same thing happened when GST came in, and no doubt when they get rid of the 5 cent piece, exactly the same thing will happen again. And then a few years later, no one will even remember the change. So it was just an interesting exercise looking back at the 1 and 2 cent piece and what people thought when they were withdrawn. Right, so let's say a few more hellos here. David, how are you, David? I've been emailing David this morning. Carolyn, good to see you here. Mike, yes, $80 is expensive for half an ounce of silver. I think the Royal Australian Mint does a beautiful job of manufacturing silver coins. If they're not the best in the world, they must be close to it in terms of quality, but they're not economic if you're looking to stack it as silver. Even their bullion issues are quite expensive compared to some of the other issuers of bullion silver. Hello, Patrick and Rob. And Clay says it'll probably go for... So Clay's talking about the gold leopard will probably go for double the estimate. Yes, Clay, coin auction estimates in the UK are typically underestimated the same way that they are here in Australia. It probably will go for double that. And hello, Dillis, and hello, Ben. Welcome. Right, I was struggling a little bit to think about what to talk about. So I thought I would talk about these. So this is our shoebox of paper money. If I had to say there was one thing that has surprised me the most since we opened up this shop, it is the sheer amount of paper banknotes that we get in here. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And I had no idea before we opened the shop that we would see this many. And it has been, for me, a very steep learning curve to become more intimately familiar with the decimal note series, to be able to know those values and relative scarcity of the different decimal note issues, the paper decimal note issues, and ensure that A, the person who's selling things to us gets a fair price, and B, that I'm not overpaying and doing us an injustice. And I got to say, it's been kind of fun. It's been an interesting learning exercise. But this is the kind of the net result of 2.5 years of paper money accumulation in this shop. This is called the shoebox. So we get people in here that ask for the shoebox, and it's full of what I call bankable paper money. There's actually some plastic money in here. So there's the first issue $5 notes, and occasionally there's some 1988 $10 notes in there. I'm not sure if there's one in here at the moment. There's one. So 1988 $10 notes. Now, I won't say that paper notes is a complex topic, but there are some basic things that, if you've got some paper notes, or you're looking to get some paper notes valued, or you're looking at purchasing some paper notes, there are some basic things that you need to take into account. And this probably helps answer that common question we get asked of, what's my paper note worth? And 99% of the time, the paper note is worth face value. 99% of the phone calls we get are people with Johnston Stone $1 notes. Yep, upside down. Johnston Stone $1 notes, or Johnston Fraser $2 notes. Now, those of you who have been around Australian coins for a while would know that Johnston Stone and Johnston Stone was the last issued paper dollar note, last issued in 1982, and Johnston Fraser $2 notes are last issued in 1985. They were both replaced by coins that were anticipated to have a life of 30 years plus versus the notes having a life of 3 to 6 months. And almost always those notes, the Johnston Stone and Johnston Fraser $2 notes, so Johnston Stone 1s, Johnston Fraser 2s, are worth face value. That's because mostly they have been circulated, and once they are circulated, they are very difficult to sell for more than face value. Now, what does a pristine note from those eras, we'll just grab this over here, pristine note actually, is it actually worth? That is a full bundle of Johnston Stone $1 notes, still with the original bank wrapping around them, and they sell for between $400 and $500. So that's between $4 and $5 a note, and that's for a perfect uncirculated note. This is a full bundle of Johnston Fraser $2 notes, again the last issued $2 note, 100 notes in there, all uncirculated with the original bank wrap around it. That sells for about $600. That's $6 per note, only 3 times face. What does that mean? It means that the first thing that you take into account when you're trying to value a paper note is the signature. And those of you who aren't sure, the signatures are just here. And usually they're the signatures of the the Governor of the Reserve Bank and the Secretary to the Treasury. Every time the Governor of the Reserve Bank changes or the Secretary to the Treasurer changes, then they issue a new series of notes if they're required. So the first thing that you want to look at on a note is those signatures, which are kind of hard to see because of the light, just sort of there and there. Now, how do you know what signature is which? This is where I'm going to tell you to get one of these Australian coin and banknote values. Okay, I think Renix is the best catalogue available, and it also happens to be the only catalogue available. I think it's a lot better than the old McDonald's catalogue in terms of the layout and the size, and it's just easy to manage day to day. But what it does include is pictures of all of the notes and the signatures that allow you to distinguish the different signatures. And that is the first thing that you want to be able to learn if you're going to start messing around with decimal paper notes. And there's all the signatures there that you can see in Renix there. So the first thing to determine the value is the signatures. So this is a Johnston Stone $1 note. It's got folds in it. Okay, that tells me that it's probably worth face value. The next thing that I'm looking at is the grade. It's got folds in it, so probably face value. And then I'm looking at the serial numbers. So the serial numbers on Australian notes at this point comprise 3 letters and 6 numbers. And of course each note has what's called a first prefix and a last prefix. The first prefix being the first 3 sets of letters that were used to print those notes before they started incrementing the letters, and the last prefix being the last set of 3 letters. First and last prefixes in most of the paper notes are worth more. Now, what are they worth? Let's say for this note here, for example, it's a Johnston Stone $1 note, the last issued in 1982. First prefix in this sort of grade is probably worth $50 to $100, and the last prefix is probably worth $10. So the first and last prefixes can add considerable value to a note, but to give you an idea of the scarcity, we've had one first prefix Johnston Stone $1 note in 3 years. One out of probably 4,000 notes, maybe 5,000 notes, and we've had about 30 or 40 last prefix notes. So signatures, get to know those, get to understand what the grade is, and then understand what the first and last serials are. And how do you know what the first and last serials are? You need this. Okay, under the listing for each note, we have a listing for what's called first prefix, last prefix. It's kind of hard to see because of the light there, but next week I'll do some scans. First prefix, last prefix, and general prefix. You do need one of those books. There's no getting around the fact that you need one of those books. Next most common question. I've got a Commonwealth of Australia banknote. It must be valuable. I've heard that they're valuable. And some of them are, if you've got the right signatures on them. But then, there's a Commonwealth of Australia $10 note that we sell out of this box for face value plus 20%. So that's in Australia. So there's a number of Commonwealth of Australia $10 notes in this box that you can have for $12. Okay, and after a certain amount of time, if this box gets too full, these notes get put in the bank. Okay, so just because it's Commonwealth of Australia doesn't mean that it is automatically valuable, not by any stretch of the imagination. The next common question I get asked is, can you tell me what a note's worth or how old it is from the serial number? And the answer to that generally is no, I cannot. I need to know the signatures and I need to know the serial number. There are very few exceptions where you can tell how old the note is from the serial number, because some issues only use certain serial numbers for special purposes. But generally, if you want me to give you some idea of what a note is worth, you're going to need to tell me these two signatures here and then the serial number. That's how it works. There's no getting around that. But what are they worth? Most of the time, face value. That's what they're worth. You may get a little bit more to collectors, and as I said, we sell things out of this box here, and you can see how many notes are in that box. We sell notes out of this box for face value plus 20% in the shop. Which covers the GST and a tiny amount of profit. Now, realistically, we can't get more than that. They just sit around if we try and get more than that out of them. And rule of thumb at the moment for this sort of stuff with catalogue values is half catalogue value. And for some notes such as hundreds, 50s, and a lot of the early 20s, the portion of catalogue value is quite a bit less than that. It might only be 30% of catalogue value or 40% of catalogue value. And as I said, 99.9% of the notes are worth face value only. Now, someone has said here, Brooke says, hey, don't bank them, I'll take them. Brooke, the low denomination notes sell. So the $1 and $2 notes sell, the $5 notes sell, the $10 notes sell less often, the $20 notes less often again, and the 50s and 100s almost never. So we generally, when we do take these things to the bank, it's the worn out hundreds and 50s and the really, really clapped out 1 and 2s, the really, really terrible ones. So like this $5 note here is, you can see that it is limp and very folded and brown and just in generally terrible condition. I doubt anyone will ever buy that, and that will probably end up at the bank. Right, so next week what I thought I'd do is I'd have a look at some more detailed stuff about banknotes, such as thread position, so side thread and center thread. The thread is and you're not going to be able to see this on the scan. You may be able to. The thread is just here. It's a magnetic thread that runs down through the paper. It's an old security feature and also helps banknote counters. That thread position moved around on some issues because if it was too far towards the middle of the note, when people folded notes, the note tended to split around the thread. The font used in the serial numbers changed on a few issues. The two fonts used on paper notes are Gothic and OCRB, so we'll have a look at that. And then we'll also have a quick look at star notes and test notes, because that's another two interesting set of notes that a bit more advanced collectors might be interested in. Right, so we'll just switch that slide off and I'll have a look at some of the questions here. What are people saying here? Ben is saying, okay, so let's go to John first. John, is that Renix 31? Mike is asking if that's Renix 31. This is the 30th edition, Mike. From what I understand, the next edition is due out in June or July. But that being said, it was due out in February. So June or July is the current estimate that we've got. John is saying he's got 100 grey nurse with different serial numbers for years. Yep. We've always got a few grey nurse $100 notes here, John. We've had some with interesting numbers and a couple of first prefixes and last prefix, but they are hard work. They're very slow to move. That's because the price of a $100 note starts at $100, and for most collectors, $100 is still a lot of money. So they do move a lot more slowly. Ben says he has a 1988 bicentennial note with 26th of January printed on it. Why is it different? It's a $10 note, not a $20 note, obviously, and I believe someone answered the question. Brooke is saying that it's a folder issue, and Brooke is absolutely right. The 1988 polymer $10 note, and there is one here, I think. There it is there. So the 1988 $10 note, that note there, which some of you might be old enough to remember being in circulation, was issued in a white folder, a white envelope in a blue folder, and that was the collector issue, and the prefixes on all of those notes were AA, and they had an overprint on them that said 26th of January 1788. They were also issued into circulation in 2 releases, and all of those notes had the prefix AB. So, contrary to popular belief, the notes with AA on them, these ones, are not first prefixes. They are folder issues. The first prefix for the folder issues was AA00, and the last prefix for the folder issues was AA23. Thank you, Brooke, for answering that question. David says, it always surprises me how consistently coin guides overprice a catalogue, and then a certain group of sellers expect the catalogue value, which is typically double the real market prices. Look, David, it's a bit of a rule of thumb. It's not exactly correct. Coombs Randall's quite a bit lower than 50%, but then some of the first prefixes and last prefixes I think are quite a bit more than 50% because they are genuinely hard to find. And I'm hoping in a couple of weeks what I'll talk about is some decimal notes that I have. We've had enough decimal notes in here now for me to know what's hard to find. Just some decimal notes that I feel like are, I guess, sleepers that are difficult to find. And in a couple of weeks I'll talk about what they are. And if you want to know what overpriced means, then there's some stamps back there. I can't get them out because the curtain's in the way. I'm working through a stamp collection at the moment and getting reference numbers out of Stanley Gibbons and a couple of other catalogues, and those catalogue values are about 1,000% more than retail value. So things that have a catalogue value of $30 or $40, you're lucky to get $1 for. So that is truly inaccurate catalogue stuff. Aaron's saying the only star note I've ever found in the wild was an Indian 10 rupee note in pretty poor condition. Aaron, I think in bulk notes that we've had in here that we've looked through with people, we've only ever found 2 star notes, which was a bit of a thrill. But then we did have someone come in here who travels to Cambodia, and they trade mainly in US dollars, and he withdrew a whole bundle of $100 US $1 star notes. So yeah, they are around. Carolyn says, can I please talk on gym money one day? Yep, I can do that. I don't know a whole lot about gym money, but I have a lot of references, and we've got a lot of gym money here that I can show and tell. Matt says sometimes the book value is less than what items are selling for. Matt, yes, I guess today the trouble with catalogues is that they are only produced infrequently, and the speed at which some prices change for some items, no catalogue is ever going to be able to keep up with it. And even the online valuation systems are flawed because either they're biased by buy it nows, or they're not updated frequently enough, or they don't account for all sources, or they don't cover Facebook sales or whatever. So I don't think there's ever going to be an accurate price guide for Australian coins and banknotes. Yep, David says he agrees that catalogues do overprice things. And Matt's talking about finding some sleeper notes too. Right, so good. Notes was a popular topic. I will continue with it next week. It is an interesting topic. Everyone's got some old paper notes around. So thanks everyone for watching. Happy collecting. It's lunchtime. Catherine said before I came in here she was hungry, so she's probably over there waiting for me to finish up. Thanks everyone for participating. It's always been a pleasure. Happy collecting. If you do have any ideas for topics or anything like that, contact me. If you're interested in any of the February, March releases, contact us as well. Stay safe. See you next week.